Hey, hello there. We are live. This is the um I started getting a little tongue tied. That's not the best way you want to start here. So we are coming live to you from the AiArthritis Voices 360 talk show. This is the official talk show for the International Foundation for Autoimmune and Autoinflammatory Arthritis, or AiArthritis for short. My name is Tiffany. I am the CEO of the organization. I'm also a person living with these diseases. My primary diagnosis, non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis, in addition to some other autoimmune diseases or autoinflammatory. And I am not alone. So our show is based on people living with these diseases, just as our mission is, who come together alongside other stakeholders. In this case, we have a nurse who we're going to introduce here in a minute. And we talk about different problems that we can solve together as equals at the table that will impact education, advocacy, and research. So let's say hello to the other people that we have here. First, I'm going to go to Katie, who is my official co-host, because we always have patients leading these discussions. Hi, Katie.
Hi.
Hi. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm Katie. I'm actually an adult now living with rheumatoid arthritis, and I used to be a kid living with juvenile polyarticular rheumatoid arthritis, and I sort of lived through and became part of the birth of biologics. And I think that's sort of been my mission all along, to have like more access to care and kind of what we're talking about today. So
Okay, great. Thank you. So thanks for co-hosting this with me. And then we also are going to be talking with Carrie Beach. She is a rheumatology nurse. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for being here. Carrie, why don't you give us a little background
Sure.
about yourself?
So, I am a rheumatology nurse in Columbus, Ohio. I have worked in rheumatology for almost 17 years, and I am on the board of the board of directors for the Rheumatology Nurses Society, and I've been on the board for about 5 years. So,
Wonderful.
excited to be here.
Thank you for that. And also, Carrie sits on our impact committee, which is every year we have a committee of other nonprofits. We have some pharmaceutical companies, other companies that sit on this panel so that we can sort of our inner circle, so that we can speak more about our projects. They can help us to facilitate improvements to some of the things that we're working on. So they give not necessarily advice, just help us to create thinking from other stakeholders what could become more impactful if we think about things from all different perspectives. So thank you,
Yeah.
Carrie, for serving on that as well. And then last but certainly not least, we have Miss Stephanie Berg. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello. Thank you for
And Stephanie, where are you tuning in from?
from Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix, Arizona. And Stephanie, why are you on the call? Will you tell everybody your role?
I am the community research manager for IFAA, and I will be assisting with upcoming AI Arthritis Voices and with the Precision Medicine Project.
Wonderful. So thank you, Stephanie. And the other thing I'll just throw out about Stephanie is that, well, first of all, we wanted her to come on because she's going to be part of the projects that we're going to feature today and speak about. But also, number two, this is being streamed at the time of our Auto Ball, and that is our official gala for our AI Arthritis organization. And we were supposed to do it in person, and it was going to be our first gala, and then COVID-19 shut it down, and so now we're back online. And so we're still doing some of the live shows in honor of the Auto Ball. So we want during this time to introduce some of our key volunteers like Katie, and also some of the staff that we have behind the scenes, so you could see a face. So there's Stephanie. And then just fun fact, and she knows what I'm going to say. Fun fact is, she's laughing, Stephanie used to be my boss. Now she works for us.
No
So,
way.
so I took a job when I lived in Phoenix for about a year and a half. I took a job at a qualitative research firm so I could learn more about focus groups and how much they cost and how they're run and all the behind the scenes so that I could bring it back to our projects. And Stephanie was my boss. She hired me. So I hired her back. So anyway, that's just a fun little fact. But we're going to go ahead and get started with the conversation. And as mentioned, our mission as an organization and of this show is that we have people living with these diseases like myself and Katie, and we invite other stakeholders like Carrie to the table to have conversations about our projects or about things in general that if we spoke together, we could identify some gaps, some things that maybe we could help each other with, and then solve these problems in education, advocacy, and research. So I'm going to start off by just talking to Carrie a little bit directly and just to get the conversation started. So we have this opportunity here we have a nurse, we have people living with the diseases, all in the rheumatology field, and wanted to know if there were any burning questions or topics that you wanted. You've got us. So I thought, why don't we start off and see if there's anything that you'd like to ask or talk about.
Sure. Now that I have you all here, no, I think what's most important for me as a nurse to know from you all is really physically how you're doing. Okay, so when you come in for a visit, don't just say, "Oh, I'm fine," or patients who are like, "Oh, I don't want to complain to you," but if you don't, we can't help you. You know how many underlying little weird symptoms that can be related to autoimmune disease.
Mhm.
So we do need to know everything, even if you don't think it's important or you think that it's nagging us. It's not. We have to know the whole picture. And the other big thing that I want to advocate for is mental health. I think it's so often not talked about or neglected in visits. And I do think that is really important to let your provider know, or it's okay to talk about that.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the mental health
Mhm.
issues that you would encourage patients to speak more openly about?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely anxiety. I know, especially right now, and I know we'll talk about that later, but in a time of pandemic, everybody's scared. And I know our patients especially have more anxiety, but even day to day, you guys live with this every day. I don't know what it feels like to be in your shoes. So tell us, what are your fears? What are you worried about? And depression is a huge part of autoimmune disease too. We see that a lot with our patients, and I think again, it's something that I almost feel it's our responsibility as providers to ask you about that. I mean, I think a lot of times that does not it's not brought up in normal conversation or in a normal exam. But I think that we need to be asking the questions. But I also hope that patients will open up to us and let us know how they're feeling.
Katie, did you want to add anything to that?
Oh, I just think that that's one of the things that we should have, like, everybody should sort of advocate for. And I've always thought that when you see a specialist for any kind of any kind of disease or chronic illness, you should be automatically put into another thing where you see like someone for mental health. It should come like a partner thing because our rheumatologists deal with so much already. My visits myself are over an hour long usually. And even though we do talk about things like mental health, I think it would be amazing if that was just something that went hand in hand. If you have a
Mhm.
chronic illness, you also see someone for your mental health. And I've kind of advocated that for the very beginning. So thank you for mentioning that, Carrie.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
I have a question. So when I go to my rheumatologist, and I've been to several over the last years, I've moved a lot. So partly because I'm complex, but I've also moved a lot, as I said at the beginning. That's how I met Stephanie. If I did move to Phoenix for a year, she wouldn't be here right now with her smiling face. So I was originally diagnosed in Los Angeles, and that was two rheumatologists. Then Phoenix, that was one rheumatologist. Then moved here, had a rheumatologist that told me nothing's wrong with me, took me off meds. I said, see ya, and ended up with the second. So I've had, 5 rheumatologists, and I can say that that there must be, or am I wrong? There must be nurses around, but in every one of those situations, I
Mhm.
didn't necessarily
Meet a
have
nurse.
contact with a nurse.
Really? Wow,
Really? You're like, oh, well, that
yeah.
is.
Sorry.
Wow.
That's
I mean, and
sad
this
to
is why
me.
that's why we talk about these things, right? Because
Yeah, and
you
I know
wouldn't have
I
known that.
very lucky where I live, Ohio, for whatever reason, we have a good amount of rheumatologists.
Yeah.
Our practice, each rheumatologist has his or her own nurse. So, and I love the way that our office works. And I know, I guess I know now more that is not the norm. But that's why I love what I do. I see my patients every single time. I'm their point of contact when they call. So it's kind of disheartening to hear that that you don't have that experience.
I think that a
Oh,
lot
go
of
ahead,
people,
Katie.
sorry, I think that a lot of people don't realize that. I think I was very lucky to grow up going to Children's Hospital in Los Angeles, so we did have a lot more resources, but I
Mhm.
learned through there because they have like the fellows program and they try to bring in a lot of rheumatologists. I learned that it's one of the most underfunded specialties. We don't have enough rheumatologists. There's huge states that don't have rheumatologists at all, so
Yep.
there's definitely places where nurses do not exist because it's not something that like is affordable. And as far as like, I've been really lucky. I've had the same nurse that followed me since I was 21 up. She's a part of RNS as well, and kind of introduced me to the world of advocacy where I got to meet Tiffany. And so I can't imagine an experience that wouldn't include a dedicated nurse. So it does make me very, very sad, but it's a very hard truth. This is a disease that's underfunded, and like the specialties just, no one really goes into the specialty as much anymore, and there aren't nurses. And I think that's the hard part because it is a team effort. Like we all have to be a part of it to make a patient's story successful, or even just to maintain sometimes.
So let me just ask a follow-up question just to that statement. So, Carrie, if there's people like myself, and I may not know until I go to that rheumatologist if there's going to be
Sure.
a nurse, but if I wanted to go in and really prepare myself to speak about my physical ailments or my mental um, state at that time, if I'm having concerns like you said with anxiety, or just challenges in general, that whether that's COVID related or not, how would you, let's say I do have a nurse, okay, let's just say that I do, how would you recommend us bringing that up? Or do you have any like good apps, or just or is it just generally dialogue? Like what are your recommendations?
And I think that also that kind of conversation comes after you build a rapport, right? I don't think anybody's going to come in on their first visit and say, I mean, they'll physically, yes, definitely tell me their ailments, but I think it takes more of a rapport and a trust. That's why I love the way our practice is set up, because my patients do, I think they trust me. Hope so. And you kind of just build that relationship. And so but again, you just have to be honest. Now we do, for new patients, we have like it's kind of ridiculous, it's like a 13-page new patient packet that they fill out. So I mean, and I'm the one inputting that, so I kind of know your story before, as long as you're being honest in your paperwork, which I find people tend to put more down there than they do, when they come in and talk. But so I already know like a good piece of your story. But I mean, I don't know that there's like an app or anything. I think it's just more conversational.
I think one of the good tips that my nurse gave me, her name is Jackie, and she always had me carry a notebook between visits, and I would put down when I had a bad day or when like something actually started, because I could never remember dates. That was my big thing when I came from Children's Hospital to an adult rheumatologist. I had no idea how to remember like when something started or when something hurt. And so she taught me to write in a notebook, and then that became my phone after a while, where I just like would put in exactly what was happening on the calendar day. And then when I come in, I open to that page and we talk about everything that happened between visits. And that's kind of become a thing. And I'm so close to Jackie that literally she came to my wedding and my doctor didn't kind of, like So she sort of taught me exactly how to talk about my body and my problems. And, like, I think that if you do have that relationship with your nurse, it's a lot sometimes, and I don't want to speak for Carrie, but it's a lot easier to get a hold of your nurse than the doctor sometimes when you're having problems in between visits. And they can kind of have those important conversations with the doctor for you.
Yep,
So,
that's a good point.
Exactly what we do.
That's a good point. And that leads us into the conversation about working together. And I think that we could revisit after the show a little bit more about possibly helping patients and nurses with the communication. Literally, patients, maybe Katie and I, we can brainstorm afterwards about different ways that we might be able to help patients think about being prepared to speak with their nurses, because I know I got to be honest, I might prep to speak to my doctor, but I don't know that I've ever really prepped to speak to the nurse. And I think that that's a prime time, right? Like I might just speak off the cuff because taking notes
conversational.
right, conversational, but I don't think that I thought ahead of time to say, wow, there's a 10-minute window or whatever it is that I have this person's ear and using that. So I think that's a really good takeaway from this. But the other part of that is sort of what you mentioned, Carrie, is this individualized care. I mean, you know their story, you read their story, and that leads us into something that at our organization we focus on strongly in a lot of what we do, and we have very specific projects, and that's precision medicine. And now I do want to just, because I know that Stephanie has to get back to work here. She's popped in so graciously to be able to say something. So I want to be able to have her just kind of say her role in this project. But I'm specifically talking about a project that we were finalists for an award in 2018 called the Preparing Patients for Precision Medicine Project. And part of that project, it will involve collaboration with nurses so that we can figure out a good way to get into rheumatology offices and talk a little bit more about precision medicine and even the future of clinical trials. So before I go into that, I'll have Stephanie turn her mic back on here. The reason we wanted you to see Stephanie is for two reasons. If you're a person living with these diseases, we do have opportunities for you to get involved in this project. And the second reason is that if you're a nurse, and we're going to ask you to also get involved, Stephanie is also a person that you're going to be talking to. So say hi, Stephanie, and go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say hello. And yes, I'm a live person. I'm a real person. I will be point of contact for both ends of this project. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be a part of it and being able to be invited and be a part of the RNS conference last year with Tiffany was an amazing experience to meet face to face a lot of the nurses that we have potential for upcoming research. So I am thrilled to be a part of this project in its entirety.
When we're glad to have you on board, Stephanie. So
Thank you,
Stephanie, thank you, Stephanie. I
Thank
know you
you.
have to get back to work, but I just wanted to make sure that people saw you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay. So more about the project that we're speaking about. So we were trying to tackle the issue of the fact that current clinical trials only enlist patients who meet a general patient population criteria. And we can go into more about the details of that at a different time. That's a whole conversation in its own. But the point is that in order to advance to precision medicine and really think forward into the clinical trials that will enlist all patients. So we've got a different target market. We have a different population that could be part of clinical trials as we move forward into thinking about these new ways of doing trials. But in order to get to that point, we first have to think about the existing barriers to trial engagement. And two of those are simply just knowledge. Patients aren't necessarily sure exactly what a trial is, or what it exists. Am I going to, what are the benefits to me? And then the second one is doctors don't usually mention clinical trials unless they're participating in a trial. It's something that they're doing in their office. And not that we are promoting clinical trials, we're really promoting precision medicine. But in order to understand and create trials that appeal to the patients who may want to be in clinical, because we need the clinical trials to get the medications
Right.
on market, right? So we developed this process where our team is working with some professionals who do shared decision making, create shared decision making tools. And we are creating a patient led shared decision making tool where our team, people living with the diseases, lead the conversation about what, first of all, education, what precision medicine is. So that's the first part. Then, if they're interested in learning more about, well, I don't know, maybe I would be interested in a trial, then they could move on to that education. And that is in the form of the shared decision making tool. So we would do the first half with them. And where normally a shared decision making tool is done between a doctor and a patient. That's the normal dynamic. So we will start it for the doctor or for the nurse.
Thank you.
and we will get them to a certain point. And then if they feel like, I might want to be more interested, we always advocate, you need to speak with your nurses, you need to speak with your doctors before making any type of decision. So we're not going to help them make the decision. We're going to basically educate them, provide them the details necessary. And that's part A. That's part of what we'll be talking to the Rheumatology Nurses Society, Carrie, and others about. Well, what could we put in there before they get to you, and what could we then have once they get to the office? So we need to figure that part out. And then the second part is, how do we get the shared decision making tool into the office? Right. So who better to figure that out with us than the nurses who know how the offices work behind the scenes? So it may, when we first did this project, I know we had a little pushback because some people who were reviewing it said, well, why wouldn't you just go to the doctor if they're going to discuss it with the doctor? And we just realistically know the people who really understand the culture of the office are the nurses. And it makes more sense to, again, like you said, Carrie, you're the first point of contact, really. So it makes sense if you're going to introduce something, maybe part of that conversation starts with the nurses and it doesn't necessarily even make it to the doctor. So we have to include the nurses in this. And so that is the project that we have underway, and we launched at the RNS conference that Stephanie was talking about. So we met a lot of nurses and we signed up a lot of nurses. And we definitely need help in facilitating this. So if you are a nurse or part of the rheumatology offices, we definitely will encourage you to contacting us and learning more. And if you're a patient and you're interested in this as well, and we'll give you information on that at the end. But I wanted to circle back on this because, Katie, you went to the other rheumatology nurses.
I sure did. I actually went in February to their conference, and I'm actually now a patient member, and I'm going to be working with them on patient-centered research and advocacy and things, all that. I'll be traveling with them sometimes, and it's an amazing opportunity. There's a lot of very, very caring people who sit on the board, who actually are in the offices every day, and they were absolutely wonderful and wanted to know so much about our project. So thank you, Carrie, for being here, but also it's just amazing to sit amongst you guys and see how much you care and are really, really dedicated to the patient.
And there was a specific precision medicine seminar there, correct?
Sure was.
And so I was going to circle back with you, Carrie, and ask you a little bit more about that. I was excited and sad because I couldn't go.
I have to fully disclose that I was supposed to be there and I had the flu.
Yeah, I remember reaching out to you.
Yeah,
asking.
I'm so sad that I missed it, but yeah, sorry.
Are you able to see any? Do you have access to be able to watch anything?
I haven't yet. With everything that has gone on now, I mean, I think it's public knowledge now, I'm pretty sure it is, that our conference this year is going to be virtual.
Yeah, I
Virtual.
saw that.
So we are learning how to do that, how to make everything. But I typically the presentations are available on the website.
Recorded,
They are recorded. Yes, I don't know that they've made them there yet, so I haven't seen the precision medicine talk yet.
I'm just curious, and again, we didn't mention this beforehand, so I apologize if I'm putting you on the spot, and you
No,
can
you're
just
fine.
say don't know. But so I was excited to see that on the roster that there was this precision medicine seminar, or that was brought to that, because that said to me that's something that the Rheumatology Nurses Society is recognizing as important. Is there anything that more light maybe you could shed on the work that the RNS or nurses in general are doing or thinking about when it comes to precision medicine?
I mean, I think the number one thing, and you mentioned, is education. Not just patients, but us nurses, we need to understand it better too. It's huge. I mean, what patient wouldn't want to to know what medication is going to work for them before they try 6 different medicines? But I think just educating us so we can better educate the patients about what it is, what it means, what it looks like for them. I think that's the best place that we all need to start.
Well, I'm glad that I asked you that question then, because
good.
as part of the project that we're going to be working on anyway, the first step is developing that education.
Mhm.
And we were just really planning to create the education thinking of patients, but that makes complete sense that we also could include the nurses as an audience, as like a parallel teacher, if you will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I kind of had the unique opportunity of feeling exactly like they're equal. They let me sit on every single thing, and I got to learn from their own materials. I took the same test as them. We sat and had lunch together. I felt like I was a nurse the entire time. I never felt like I wasn't their equal. And the best part about it is that it kind of really illustrates the fact that we are like experts in our field as far as patients go, and because there was things they were learning from me because I participated in one of the original clinical studies for Enbrel, or Entrecept, when it was in its infancy and was being tested on kids, and hearing my perspective, some of them had not been a part of clinical trials whatsoever and were asking me a lot of questions, and there was so many amazing conversations that were had and education that was happening outside of the conference. So I think that's the best part about coming together with nurses and patients, is that we all have something very unique to add.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we only just in this last 30 minutes, I know we've each learned something from each other just from talking.
Yeah.
So you see, it works to have the conversations. So I think that for this project in particular, what I've gathered from this conversation is really going back to the beginning here, is the communication between the patient and the nurse is something that should be realized, and that's a very precious opportunity to have your voice heard. And in saying that, moving on to this project, this participating, or excuse me, precision medicine project, is that we as an organization, while we're creating these educational materials, Carrie, I'll swing back with you since you're on our impact committee for our organization, and just kind of start to streamline an outline of how we could also direct that to nurses. I think that's brilliant to do that. So I think that we've got a good additional outline for the project, and I wasn't even planning on that. Yes. So I love how that works. So and it's kind of a great way for people who are listening in to get an insider track on how we work as an organization, because you literally just kind of sat in on a meeting that we have, and so that's pretty cool in itself. Is there anything else that either one of you wanted to mention specifically about precision medicine or working together, patient or nurses in that genre, before we move on?
Oh, I just think it's very exciting. Very, very exciting. Go ahead, Katie.
I think that what people don't discuss all the time is that we have this very unique opportunity to put the me in medicine as cheesy as that sounds, because
Fair
you
enough.
might be the last key between
Mhm,
what works for you or your type of disease. Like, we're all so different.
mhm,
And I think that the one thing that patients bring to it is that when we go to another patient, we sit in an equal and we can talk to them and teach them, like the years of experience that myself or Tiffany have speaking to doctors, researchers, nurses, that like not everybody has had the opportunity to do, but to also pull people in and make them a part of this group and bring them to the table so that we all have this shared experience, because we are literally just missing you. And that sounds like
mhm,
it sounds cheesy, but it is very true. We are just you away from making a very big difference.
mhm.
And I have lived through what, like, it's been 20 years since I was on the clinical studies for those things. And just in that time, they used to call it the dark ages of rheumatology. We've come
Yeah,
so far. No, we've
yeah.
come so far. We
Yeah.
have so much still to do. And I
Mhm,
think what would have happened to me if me and my parents had just said no?
mhm.
I was one of the first 50 original kids who were in the study. I became their
Wow.
spokesperson, their most improved patient. And what if we just said no? Or what if we
Mhm,
had never been approached?
mhm,
That's the one thing that I have always stuck to from that moment on, is that I will say yes whenever people ask me to whatever project, because you never know what's going to
mhm,
be the difference and how different would my life have been. And all the other kids who were in that study, if we just
mhm,
said no and we'd just been ill informed or scared or
mhm,
whatever, like, there's so much that we can give now. There's so much more access to the information. And if there isn't access, then we should be that access. So
Yep.
that's been my passion from the very beginning. And I think that like IFAA and RNS has given me this very unique opportunity to have the soapbox to tell people that
Mhm.
there's literally made a life changing difference in my life through precision medicine. And you could be a part of that too.
That's
And I think
that's
that
great.
you brought up a great point about what if you had said no. So, and I think in trying to recruit, patients for this, uh, along with the education, they don't understand research. You ask a patient, "Hey, do you want to be part of a research study?" Eh, you know, it's scary. They don't know. Am I like a guinea pig?
Yep.
So I think that's, I have basically two types of patients, the ones that are like, yes, please sign me up, whatever I can do to help other patients. And then the other ones that are like, I just don't understand what you mean by research.
Yeah.
So that's something else to bring to light.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I'm writing that note down because it's true. It like especially when you have people working on projects, project managing like myself or Katie, who have been in this for so long. We always bring all voices to the table, so
Mhm,
novice to expert. But that's something that we have to keep in the back of our mind too. That just that simple word research
mhm,
can mean something very scary
mhm.
or there's an uncertainty that could lie
Yep.
in that we may be farther past that wouldn't have
Yeah.
thought about just even that word. So
I
that I
think
wrote that down.
I think the crazy part is I was just a teenager when a lot of this was happening, and it actually came from, it very much, if we're being honest, it very much came from a desperation thing where we had exhausted every medication out there. I was living out of a hospital basically. I was in a wheelchair. They told me I'd never walk again, kind of thing, and it was scary. But it was also scary to hear all the things. You sit down to a bunch of paperwork and people tell you all the bad that could happen and all the nothing that could happen. And
Mhm,
I think that a lot of that language can get lost on people. And if we can be that bridge that sort of tells you, like, yes, there is all of this scary, or explain all the scary, there's so much
mhm,
misinformation or non-information that's not getting to patients, or maybe we just don't offer it to them in general, that I think we're missing a lot of opportunity. And there's a lot of people who could really affect a lot of change. And especially with things like step therapy that are kind of scary and awful, what if there was a
mhm.
different option? What if there was a different option? And there is, and that's exactly what this project is about, is giving options where there aren't any sometimes.
hmm I
Great
didn't
point.
bring I didn't mention it in the brief overview, but for those who are listening to who are not from the United States, step therapy is something that our healthcare system, our insurance companies will have lists of preferred treatments that we must first try and fail
And
before
fail.
we move to another treatment. So we do actually have some shows. I have a mini show, and I'm making a note here to find that link so you all can listen. I literally just did it last week, I think,
Mhm.
and it was on that. We
Yeah.
did a paper on the ethics of step therapy. Don't want to get too off the subject,
No,
but the
absolutely not.
reason that was so important that Katie mentioned that is because our Preparing Patients for Precision Medicine project, I mentioned that it will start to talk about clinical trials in particular, and how normally the general patient population is the ones included in clinical trials. But however, regardless of where you are in the world, only about 30 to 40% of people who actually use these treatments it's effective, and that's because they're not precision, they're not personalized to each individual response, right? So one of the things that we say in the outcomes of the work that we're doing for this precision medicine project is we are helping patients and science, hopefully, to realize that if we can get patients into these precision medicine clinical trials, then essentially we are expediting treatments that would not only have better outcomes for the patients, but better outcomes for the healthcare system as a whole, because it costs billions of $2.6 billion to get a biologic drug to market. And so, right. And to have only a 30 to 40% response rate we've got to work on that. So in the large scheme of things, that research also can dominate what is recommended by an insurance company. So in essence, if you've got the safety and efficacy research, that will trump the step therapy
Yeah.
process. So
And
that is one of the outcomes. But yes, we will, as we wrap this up, we're going to tell you more about where to go to learn more about this project. But we thought before we wrap this up, we've got a prime opportunity here to talk to Carrie a little bit about COVID-19, because Carrie, you are on the panel, the town hall group. Will you tell us a little bit about what that is
Sure.
and what you all are doing?
Yeah, so with RNS, we decided I forget when the first one even was, end of March, middle of March,
Yeah.
right about the time things were really coming out with COVID, that we needed to get out there and kind of educate other nurses, patients, and I have learned so much from these. So they're weekly town hall meetings, basically, panel of at least 4 of us, branching out now, trying to get some guest speakers on who are, more experts in immunology, things like that. But kind of going around and like we've had a couple of nurses that are in New York. So people from kind of all over the country, and just kind of seeing how things are where they are, because I think COVID has affected every state so differently. Very lucky here in Ohio, we have not had we haven't had a huge amount of cases. But that's basically what we do. We talk kind of about, I always bring up what most common patient questions have been, and continue to be. Patients are scared. We talked about that. We've talked about that a lot. I was scared when this all first happened. They started shutting things down. It's like, gosh, I have 2 little girls. Like, what is this? We don't know, but it's so good to get together. We always feel better to as a group afterwards every week. Just kind of hash out what everybody's seeing, and kind of, I don't know, reaffirm everything that, kind of calms you down, actually, just to be able to talk to everybody about it.
Yeah, and these town halls are on your Facebook page.
They're on, their Facebook, and they go live every Thursday, 6:30 Eastern Standard, and then we also record all of them, and then they'll host watch parties later on for like our West Coast friends.
Yeah, and please watch it as a patient because I know we're talking about personalized medicine, but it's personalized news for you if you're a patient. It's absolutely comforting and helpful, especially when it feels like the media is not necessarily talking to your concerns. These are our nurses in our field, and it has been extremely comforting because every one of them will tell you what the status of their office is, their patients. And holy moly, it has helped so much. Thank you so much, Carrie.
Yeah, no, it's great. And that's the other thing is if you do tune in, ask questions. I mean, anything is on the table. We try to answer everything that we can while we've got you all there.
And also you can submit questions on the
so
website.
You can submit, through the RNS website or during the live feed.
Yeah. And I sat in on the first couple and then I wasn't able to be there live. But what I liked about it, in addition to the watch parties, they're still there. So you can go back on Facebook, and I just went back and played it and kind of did my own, my own listening. But one of them that I went back and listened to, you said you've been having guests, and I just want to really emphasize that in the comments, I've seen nurses, but I've also seen patients. And I want everyone to understand that it is literally a conversation between the both, and bridging rheumatologist nurses with rheumatology patients. I find the conversation absolutely important and fascinating. One of them was with an immunologist who talked about the COVID tests and the false negatives. And that was important to me because I went through that myself. And so when I heard what she had said was that there was a smaller cohort of patients who had all the symptoms and tested negative through the nose swab. And then when they went right back, they tested them in the throat, they were positive. And I went, what? And she said because of the way that it starts at the upper respiratory and goes down to the lower. So that to me was just so eye-opening. And that where else would I have found that information? I just was, it was such a great example of the types of conversations. Anything goes.
It is.
Tiffany, like, wouldn't you say that sometimes as a patient, it's very easy to get lost in the shuffle of like someone telling you it's negative or whatever, and then to have something like that fully validate the fact that you knew something was wrong and you like, and then you actually have the information, that like, it's not just you, it's a true thing, and like we have that resource to thank,
Well, let me ask you, Carrie, too, as I have you on here. When you gave an overview, you said that you all have talked a lot about the patient situation and patients being scared. What would you say you're hearing are the top couple things that patients are expressing fear about?
Medications. What's the first thing that we tell you when you're on a biologic? We stop it if you're sick, right? So I think in your head, you're thinking, well, there's this horrible virus going around. I'm on this drug that's going to suppress my immune system. It makes sense to stop it, right? And at first we didn't know, this is a whole new beast to us too. But at the end of the day, that was huge. We needed to tell patients, you need to stay on your medications. The risk of you flaring is going to cause more damage. And in fact, there's no like research to back this up, but our patients seem to have been protected somehow. So there's something going on that, we're really not seeing very many patients. I haven't had one positive patient.
Well, that's good.
But that was probably the biggest fear, were patients taking their medications and thinking that they were going to be more at risk to catch COVID. And then along the same lines are infusion patients. So we're calling them and telling them, you need to stay on your medication. Well, they're scared to come out of their house. So we had to do a lot within our office to kind of, get everybody socially distanced, everything 6 feet apart, make sure everything is fully sanitized, decrease the amount of patients that are in the office so that our infusion patients especially can feel comfortable coming in so that they can still, continue on their medication. So that, I think that was probably the biggest fear. And then of course with the hydroxychloroquine scare, that is, as soon as that came out as a potential treatment, man, my phones lit up. And patients were, they're like scared. And what am I going to do? I need this drug. This is, or lupus patients, especially, like
Mhm.
that may be their only option. So I think at least here it's settled down. Our patients were all able to get their Plaquenil without any issue.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's been much better. There was kind
Mhm.
of a hold
Yeah.
for a month or so there, and now that the research is showing that it's not the miracle COVID drug,
Yeah.
things
Slowing
are
down.
slowing down a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you said that because that is that's been predominantly the similar questions that we get or that we're hearing. I mean, I can't speak for Katie, but the fear of the medication, the treatment, am I more susceptible? At the
Mhm.
beginning, it was really, should I stop? Like you said,
Mhm.
we do have on our website, aiarthritis.org/COVID-19,
Mhm.
we have a resource that we wrote specifically addressing that and catching
Great.
all of the doctors and some quoted research just explaining
Mhm.
no, do not stop your treatments. It's something that you have to talk to your rheumatologist about.
Yeah.
So if you have more questions on that particular, you can go to our website. And as an FYI, we also have a link to the rheumatology town hall meeting on that page because
Yay.
we feature all great resources.
Yes,
So
we
we
do.
do have that one on there. And then the other question was about the infusion, and I'm still seeing that one. I'm still
Yeah.
seeing two parts. Some patients being fearful to go to the infusion center,
Mhm.
others saying I went and wow, I mean it was great.
Mhm.
Although they couldn't be with their loved one, that was an issue.
Yeah.
They wanted to
Yeah.
get it with the
I
loved
can,
one. And then this, I'm sorry, Katie, just one more.
yeah.
And then the second thing was there were a lot of patients talking about moving their infusions to a home infusion. I don't, what are the nurse, what is the conversation about that with nurses? Because then you're asking a nurse to come into a home.
Right. I mean, in general, as a rheumatology nurse, I am not a fan of home infusions, be, unless it would be, a trained rheumatology nurse. They're not. I don't know that every nurse is trained in just rheumatology medications. Like that is
Hmm.
all we do in our office, in our infusion suite, are all, rheumatology based infusions. So I think it's a little scary to go into a home and, like you said, yes. So you're a nurse, say you've got 3 or 4 patients a day, you're going to 3 or 4 different homes. How is that? I don't know. I don't think that
Is that any safer?
I don't think it's any safer. Absolutely.
I wouldn't either because at least in the infusion center, it's controlled. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, you're scrubbing, you're cleaning. And
Mm-hmm.
how can you say if I just went into one person's home and then I'm coming into your home,
Right.
we don't know what was in that home, right?
No.
So also beyond that, our nurses, our rheumatology nurses, go through very specific training, and
Mm-hmm.
with the actual groups of the biologics come in and give special training all the time, and they've learned exactly how to deal with the specific side effects and things that go
Yep.
wrong that maybe a regular nurse would not know. I think that we kind of, as patients, we sort of run into that problem all the time where we are even scared to go into a regular ER because they don't know
Sure.
us as well as as our specialist or our nurse. So I think it's more dangerous than you think it is,
Mm-hmm.
And I've had one infusion already, and tomorrow I'm going for my second one during COVID.
Okay.
And I kind of went through this very weird time for me because I feel very educated on everything, and I feel sort of like I do know, I feel like I've trained for this my whole life. Like everybody else is learning about COVID and the dangers, but I feel like I've sort of lived through every flu season, every holiday season, and sort of taken
Right.
myself out of life sometimes just to protect whatever my health status was at that time or to not put myself at risk. So
Mm-hmm.
even though everybody else is sort of coming around to this kind of life,
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of adapted to this lifestyle for a very long
Mm-hmm.
time. But it still was very scary. And I spent a good portion of those couple of days preparing for my first infusion, kind of sharing my feelings with regular people about what
Mm-hmm.
a sick person's life is like and the
Mm-hmm.
fears and the kind of anxieties I was going through. And I might do that again. But the thing is that I still went because like the, the fear of what could happen if I didn't go
Yep.
is more so a thing for me. Like I'm on a biologic right now that works really, really, really well, and I sort of always live with the fear of what tomorrow might bring.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the best thing to do is to know that you're walking into an office that knows you and knows your
Mm-hmm.
disease, and with people that you should very much trust, and go in and take care of yourself, because as scary as all of this is, we have been here before. Like, I know that COVID's different, but like, we have lived through the very, very serious like immune compromise, like you could catch anything at any time. Like the flu always took me into the hospital for dehydration. A cold turned into an upper respiratory infection or a walking pneumonia. It always became something else. So I've
Right.
always lived at this like sort of to safeguard myself kind of thing. So yes, do everything you've been taught, do everything that you know, but go in and take care of yourself, because if we weren't supposed to be there, I don't think they would let us come in.
Very good point. And
Yes,
I have a feeling, Carrie, is that she's saying, we're taking care of you. You're a nurse,
Yep.
it's
It's what we
part of
do.
what you do. That's what you do. And I think a great way to kind of wrap up this conversation, since we've reached our time here. But I wanted to thank Katie for co-hosting the show, and Katie will also be back. She's one of our recurring co-hosts, and Carrie. It's just been wonderful to be able to have you on. I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you
Thank you,
agreed,
guys.
and all the work that RNS is doing as well. We are so thankful to be collaborating with you. So, where can people find you, RNS? Where can they find you all? Carrie?
Website is rnsnurse.org. Sorry, I had to think about that one.
That's okay.
We're all over Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, Twitter. So it's type in rheumatology nurse and you'll probably have no problem finding
You're
us.
right.
And
That's actually how I found. That's how I found it earlier today when
Google.
I was looking for it. It's exactly what I typed in. And then, as she said, you could also find them every Thursday at 6:30
6:30.
Eastern time on Facebook for these town hall meetings. They're not only for nurses; they're for the community, and they're very, very informative.
Yeah, tune in. That's our news for sure.
Highly recommend those. Additionally, we mentioned a couple of the other podcast episodes that we have done that are in relation to what we're talking about today. So you can find all of the episodes at aiarthritis.org/podcast. As far as this project that we were featuring, the Preparing Patients for Precision Medicine, if you are a nurse and anywhere in the world, we are an international organization. So if you are a nurse, if you are a person living with autoimmune or autoinflammatory arthritis diseases, please, and interested in being part of this project in any way, you can go to our website, aiarthritis.org. It is under the initiatives, and I believe it's /precision medicine, but I don't want to say that for sure because I'm not 100%, but if you go and look under our initiatives, you can scroll down and find that as well. And then also, if you would like to have links to all of the live shows that we have done, please go to aiarthritis.org/autoball. That's where you can register for this 4-day event. Even if you've missed the past, you still register and we're going to send you everything. So, and then you also will learn what we have live coming up tomorrow, which is the end. And then finally, if you are inclined and you would like to support the work we do, you could always donate also at our website. Just hit that big old red donate button. And we certainly would appreciate it so we can continue doing the work we do. That's it. That's a wrap there, ladies. And I am so excited that you joined us. And thank you all for tuning in, and add your comments because there's always a seat for you at the table here at AiArthritis.